Hi there, traders, and welcome to Trade the Structure. Now, we've had a good little Easter break there, so we should all be nice and refreshed and ready to get into some charts of the recent action. So, we're just going to go through the key levels of the major indices that we look at, along with a bit of currencies, some commodities, and some cryptos. So, we've got Ethereum and Bitcoin only. Like I said, copper, crude, or gold, all the things that we see that are going to move the market. So, we want to know the key levels getting into the day's action. So it's been shut for a few days, so there's a bit of catch up to do from some of these indices. US was open last night. Didn't really move too much on the major indices. Now they've got a lot to look forward to this week with earnings and next week over the coming weeks anyway. So it may get a bit choppy into the markets, just depending on what they're focusing on. When they're focusing on interest rates and inflation, which I think we pressure the markets, and just to see what the earnings are coming out at. If they're going to overshoot the mark, are they going to undershoot the mark? Generally the US will overshoot the mark because they give really bad forward earnings looking. So it's probably going to be a lot of restructuring of some positions for a lot of people, a lot of funds, and that's what we might see a bit of chop into the US markets, which is going to flow into our markets as well. So let's get into it. We'll recap over to the Aussie market, the ASX 200 to start with. We've got the SPY, and then we'll look at this is on the 5-minute chart, then we'll look at the bigger picture on the 30-minute chart for the ASX 200. So the levels I'm really looking at today, you see the market sort of chop high. It had a bit of a flush through this 75.01. I would expect it to attack into the highs at 75.32 just because the momentum's up, the bias is up, and it's just, it's a good little move when the market's going to open. If it wants to just clear out some traders, it's a good level to attack. It's so close, it's only about 30 points or so away. So I'm expecting that sort of flush, and then I'll be looking for a shoulder or a lower high off that level. I don't expect it to get out of hand on the upside because the US wasn't, it was slightly down last night. So it's a really good move just to sort of drag in some buyers, trap them, and then maybe the market to fade into the close. Now, looking at the bigger picture, you can see it's a bigger level. Excuse me, a bigger level on this on the 30-minute chart. You've got the level around the 75.58, so that's kind of matches off with that SPY level around here, 75.32. So we expect that sort of flush into that level, maybe dragging some buyers, some eager buyers, and maybe we're looking at something like this, punch into new highs and then fail after that. You got momentum potentially starting to fail. Look, it could easily lift here, but it's sort of in that overextended territory. The ASX index as well itself is kind of pushing into some highs, previous highs, and some all-time highs a bit further on after that. So looking for that sort of push up to here, maybe fail off there, looking for that shoulder, and maybe just looking to squeeze out some of these longs that are built up. Okay, over to the Asian markets. The Hang Seng looks a little bit more negative to me. I'm not sure whether we're going to get this sort of thing. We've got grind higher and then dump on the open. So we get this grind higher, then dump on the open potentially. It's looking rather negative. You've got this level that's held up okay, 21.038 previously. You've got this action that's held up again, just pushed down, lower high, flush into that level, and then sort of these higher lows holding. So it is holding higher lows. The key level is at 21.587. So I'll be watching these two levels today. If it sort of pushes up on the open when the market reopens, so the index will open at I think it's at 11 o'clock. Sorry, 11:15. Then the underlying index is 11:30. So you get that bit of chop, drought, maybe pop up into into that level 21.587. I'll be looking for a lower high, potentially below that level. You get the momentum just starting to swing down. Now, like I said, it's been closed for a few days. It's got a bit of catch up to do. It may want to just drag in some buyers and squeeze them out with a push into 21.038. It could just open up straight down into that level, and then we'll have to keep an eye on it from there. So that's what I'm looking at for the Hang Seng. Now the Nikkei, same sort of action. That was open yesterday, but it's just a chop. There's no market for it to go off to, and you can see that all the indicators are a bit warped. You got this action which is continually ground, pushed higher, flushed higher, pullback, flushed higher, pullback. So it was just choppy action. If you're trading that yesterday, it's probably not the best market to trade into when you've got no other market open. It's really nothing this market doesn't lead anything. It's got nothing to lead it along. So really, best to stand aside yesterday in that kind of action. Now that the markets are open, it'd be interesting to see what happens. You've got this level here, 27.201. It's touched on that before. We've had that fail off that level, retest, fail. Kept retesting until we got this lower high and pressed down to these lows at 26.304 before we come all the way back up, flushed into the level, took out some stops, and then failed again. So whether we're going to get this lower high come into play, it's just starting to open now. lower high coming into play here and it's going to fail off that level, or whether we need to test into that 27,201. We'll just have to wait and see. Okay, over to the Dow. Now that's the 30-minute chart we're looking at here. We've got the market has come off that 35,341 area, held a lower high at 34,885. The thing is, it's also held this inside higher low of 34,296. So really, you've got whether we've got this key level is going to hold 34,104 with a higher low off here, we can work some longs into that 34,885, or we go higher, or whether this is the one that's going to come into play and we're going to get held this lower high. So it's kind of an each way bet. Just because we hold this level here doesn't mean it's not going to hold a zone, a lower high off that zone. You know, we're talking this level in here, whether it's going to hold a lower high in there and start to pressure down, and that sort of negates that this sort of double bottom or triple bottom, whatever you want to call it, or this higher low, and it's going to push through here and test into this low, or whether we're going to hold this and pressure higher. So for me, I just want to see some action. If that's what we're looking for, this one holding, I'm looking for this sort of short-term higher low and looking for that extension up. Okay, US Tech. Now, US Tech held this level through here, 13,740. It's coming off, you know, it's still holding a downtrend at the moment off these highs at 15,295, and it's got a lower high, or an RTF, we call it, retest fail at 14,287, which is pressuring the market lower. So the bias is still down. It's just whether it's going to react up and off that zone, or whether it's going to, you know, maybe drag in a few buys off that level, you know, pop up, hold a lower high, and then pounce straight through it again. So we'll wait and see how that goes. Obviously, I think that action is going to kick off a bit later on into the start of the US session, the European session, but we'll see. We'll see. The DAX. So probably we just want to go out to a 4-hourly chart here to start with. And then we'll go back to the 1-hourly chart. So you can see this has been a big level. Okay, big level through here. We smashed through it. We've come back up, retested at 14,945, and now we're fading again. Okay, and the most recent level to hold the action down is at 14,330. So back to just bear that in mind, we could be that we're holding a key lower high. We've retested that zone where it broke out on the longer term. It was a daily action as well. We retested that and we're starting to fail again. Whether we just had to, you know, we may need to have a bit of deeper pullback of this leg up, deeper pullback, and then we start to ramp up and through, or whether we're going to fail off that level. So that's where it's handy to get a bigger picture view and then drop it down to your lower time frame charts just to see what sort of action you could see. Okay, so at the moment we've got this level here. It's pulled back, held a little, you know, held a retest here, popped up, failed through it, retested from underneath, and then we failed back down again. So whether we're going to, and that's at 14,330 level, whether we're going to fade off this zone through here when we open later on around 4 or 5 o'clock, whether we fail off there and get another lower high coming to play and we've got to work on the short side, or we start to break up and retest into this level. I'm favoring the bias. For me, I'm favoring down. I'm favoring continuation on the downside. We'll just wait and see how that plays out tonight. It's basically, I'll be waiting for the European session to open and kick off there. So UK, the FTSE, or the UK 100, you've got, it's the bigger picture, it's sort of going sideways. So we've got more of a daily level up here at 76.82, and then we've got more of a minor level at 76.20 or 76.29, a more minor level compared to the daily charts. We've got support holding up through here. This is the hourly at 75.39. Now it's held up, so which means that bias is still up. It's a lot of sideways action for me. You can see that, you know, it's been a good move down, a good reaction back up, some consolidation, another good reaction. But sort of since here, that was more vertical, we've sort of leveled out a bit more, if that makes sense. So we're you know, pushing through to new highs, a bigger retracement, pushing through to new highs. So not pushing through a lot through to new highs before we get a retracement. So it's just choppy. You're getting suckering in that breakout traders, turn around and squeezing them back out, suckering in some breakout traders, turn around and squeeze them back out. Okay. So really, if you're going to want to get long that, you want to be breaking it down, considering where we've come from on the upside. You know, these lows through here, if you want to get long, you want to drop it down to the lower time frame charts, okay, to get a position where you can really reduce that risk. Okay, from now, I'm looking for this. I wouldn't be trading this. I'm looking more at sideways action. You can see the longer term MAs with the 100 is starting to flatten out a bit. It is, you know, popped up on the 20 and the 50, or the 10 and the 20 EMAs, and we've got this level to contend with at 76.29. So I'll be just waiting to see. I mean, shorter term, on the hourly, it looks like the bias is up. If we can hold on these MAs, we could punch it to retest this, or get through it and retest up into 76.82. But I wouldn't be I'm not too biased up at the moment. I'm not too keen on taking some longs. Actually, we get over the currencies. I'm just going to go through to um, trading view here for the currencies. We'll start off with the US dollar index. So we've spoken about this level quite a few times. Okay, it's up towards that 101 area, this resistance zone through here. It's traded up through there. Now, it's whether or not there's going to be more inflation expectations. I think it's a bit overcooked for now in the short term with regards to inflation. The numbers coming out, we've got all the Fed reserves will be talking this week. You've got a lot of inflationary numbers coming out, but I think the market sort of adjusted to the upside on the US dollar for now. I would expect a bit of a reaction off this level. Don't be surprised if it does, we sort of push through and then we start to fail down back below it and get a more of a squeeze on these longs that are built up. And that's more of, that rangy sort of action, okay, longer term. And it may push back down to that 97 area. But what that means for your currencies is going to be a bit of chop, say, the euro, the pound, the Aussie, and the yen. Okay, but the US yen is a big one. We'll click over to that now. It's extended, and we've got some serious levels that it keeps breaching. So on a daily basis as well, and that's just it's all aboard on the upside for me at the moment. Not trading it long. I think it's extended, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get some intervention from the BOJ. They've mentioned it quite a few times now. It's up at a level where they don't want it to get too much higher. They don't want too many more shorts to come into the yen, US dollar long. So maybe it's more US dollar, that rally into the US dollar is pushing it, but it's also some shorts into the yen that's really starting to get this thing climbing, okay, pushing through some key daily levels. Now, it's just breached a key daily level. It'll be interesting to see where we start to get back off, whether there's more talk from the BOJ about intervention, and whether that US dollar holds that level, that resistance zone. We were talking, if the US dollar starts to hold that resistance zone, it could be a good short squeeze, sorry, a long squeeze onto the US yen. Okay, as some US dollar positions start to unwind and some short positions start to unwind into the yen. Okay, over to the euro. The euro, just sort of, we'll line these up a bit better. Euro pressuring down. You can see it's come off this level at 111.46. It's holding sort of this zone through here, 109.40, and it's just pressuring through. It's not a major level through these lows at 108.18, but it's still looking prepared to go lower. Now, we had that good flush through the level. It's come back up and retest it, and it's a bit of a grind down now. So if the US dollar does react lower, I'd expect a bit of a short squeeze into the euro. Okay, so that's sort of what I'm looking at for now. It's all sort of based around that US dollar for now, but we'll see. The pound's more, it's sort of chopping below these levels, between ththese two levels at 131.70 and 3,000 even. Okay, it's traded down through this level before. We flush through, it's held. So it'll be interesting to see whether we do keep flushing into it and it keeps bouncing back. Okay, so there also the pound is very much focused on interest rate rises. So interest rate rises should mean appreciation into the pound, but it's getting offset at the moment by that US dollar strength. So any US dollar weakness you'd see, I would expect a good rally into the pound. Any of these shorts that have just come off this level around here, 131.44, to get squeezed out. Okay, so really it's this this lower high. It's holding the market down at the moment at 130.40. If that starts to break, then you've got a bit of an unwind, and you've got that sort of bid zone to offer zone move. Okay, Aussie dollar. Yep, got that right. So the Aussie dollar is just pressuring through that 73.67. There was a good move up. It's starting to unwind a bit at the moment. Whether it's going to continue to unwind or whether we're going to start to find some support. Maybe we're going to start to get support a bit lower. So we might start to flush a bit lower, but ultimately hold 73.30 or thereabouts, maybe down to 7,300 even. But I'm expecting that sort of support to hold. Okay, we may, like I said, touch in there, have a bit of a flush. It's got through a level, but it's going to end up in no man's land. Get some people in short, only to squeeze them straight back out with a rally. Okay, so that's what I'll be looking for there. Okay, we'll get back over to some of the commodities now. We'll look at gold. Now, gold it's pushed up, had a good little push up through 1964. It's holding a level at 1983, and that's really just this move off the highs. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. It's moved off the highs there. Most recent level is that it's only a minor level at the moment of 1983. It's holding this action down, but it's in an uptrend. Okay, so it's more of that's your uptrend. We're in a pullback mode, so we're looking to that uptrend to continue. So I'll be ideally looking for that level to break at 1983. If you get some sort of compression there, we can hold a higher low that we can work a long off into that 2007 level. Okay. Otherwise, if we start to get back down to 1964, it's a deeper retracement. I won't really like to see to be trading off that deeper retracement. I want more of a, maybe flush into there, and I want a key higher low to hold if I want to get long off that. Okay, but for now, I want to see it sort of hold here. I think it's in a good little position off this. This is your leg up. This is your pullback. It's in a good position, a good zone. It's sort of 50% of that move up. It's retraced in that bigger leg up. Okay, if we start to hold there, then I'll be looking for that break of 1983 as a key heads up that we're going to continue higher. Okay, back into crude. Crude has been moving higher. It's into a zone here at 108.05. It has flushed up through there. It's taken out some stops. It's pulled back. It's starting to hold there. If we continue up, yeah, it's looking to be basically continue to 116.10 area. Okay, so maybe this is the level where we can work a short, but it's early stages at the moment. Okay, we could, if you're looking left, you're looking at some zones in here. There's nothing too major. You have got this little, minor level here, which you can see, which it retraced off. Retraced off. It's sort of pressed into that level, pull back. It's whether or not we're going to hold that. So really, it's about, are we going to continue on up and you sort of negate any move down, retest, and we're going to continuation up, or whether we're going to get a deeper correction and we're going to start to find some sellers stepping in for that kind of a move. Okay, but for me, I need to see some more price action just for now. Okay. Well, it does suggest, you look at the momentum, it does suggest if we're going to start to hold off this zero line, there's a good opportunity where it's just going to continue to grind higher. And it can easily be manipulated up. All right, copper. Over to copper now. It's been essentially going sideways for me, 101.70, support zone through here, and that's 105.40. If we can get into I'll just see how it go. I'm having a few problems with the computer at the moment. I think it's just too much data coming through, but let's just take that out of the way. That's your 4-hourly chart. Now you can see major resistance. Okay, got highs up here. It's pulled back, got supported. It's worked its way up, failed off there again at 107.66. So we've got either, two scenarios. I see this on the bigger time frame charts. This is a 4-hourly chart, or essentially the daily. We could be looking to get a lower high at 105.40. Okay, and it's failed there once, twice, 3 times before we start. I mean, there's no reason why it can't keep going up. So you've got the key levels at the moment, 101.70 and 105.40. If we hold this level, we want to compress here and we want to power up and through. So we want to be working off higher lows. Okay to work off higher lows at the moment because nothing's set in stone. Now, if we start to fail down through 101.70, there's a good chance that all this leg up, you've got a major retest fail, major RTF up here. We've got a shoulder in the way of a lower high, and that could really start to unwind all these longs that have been building up. Okay, but for now, longs are still in charge. Okay, we'll look at last few. We'll look at it's just your cryptos, Bitcoin. I think it's a good little flush through that zone at 39,200, and it's a good little retracement up. Okay, off that level, and it looks like it wants to hold it. It's a little bit extended here. Maybe it's a thinner market over the break, but still we're holding there. I'll be looking for. I ideally want to see a flush of that level 41,450, and then a lower high to work off. It could just as easily roll off that level, come back into retest at 39,200, and then start to hold a higher low, which we can work some longs off. Okay, so they're really the two levels I'm looking at. If you get over to Ethereum, much of the same action, it flushed through the level, just really a stop hunt, it looks like, taking out some stops before we get that retracement. 30.51 sort of key level for me at the moment. You've got a lower high here at 31.46, and you can see that nice action, pushed up, broke through the level, come back up, retest it here before we push down. So there is a chance that we're going to get, just get rid of the notification there, we're going to get a lower high come into play, but it's just whether this is going to be a stop. The way it retraced up, it looks like there's some buyers that wanted to support that level, and buyers starting to step in. And you can see previously we'd gone to the longer term EMAs. We're sort of hovering around that zone, chopped around that zone before we failed. We've gone through that longer term, so it's 100 EMA. We've gone through that quite convincingly, okay? So that's why I'm sort of looking at this level thinking it's just a flush of the lows, a bit of a stop hunt. So ideally, I'd like to see this pullback, hold a higher low, a key level where we might get a lower, a bit of chop on the lower time frame chart, a bit of chop around here before we hold this inside higher low, and we start to work our way up, okay? So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. There's quite a few charts in there, quite a few levels to focus in on, and some key action. We'll have to wait and see what the US does tonight. That's going to be a bit of a leader. It's probably a bit of a heads up. We might get a bit choppy today. We might just flush, like I said, on the ASX, flush through those highs, and then fade before we see what the US does tonight and the European market does tonight as well. Okay, so big focusing on earnings tonight in the US. It's just whether or not, like I was saying before, whether or not they're more focused in on inflation and rate rises, because inflation is still very, very high as opposed, to what the Feds were saying. They said it was going to be transient. It's been not transient at all. It's been really settled in. It's really, it's here to stay at the moment. So they've got to do something about inflation, cooling inflation with rate rises, whether it's going to be 1, 2 off straight off the bat, and it'd be consistent rate rises from there on in. Now, how does that work too for shares? It's going to be whether the market's thinking we're overcooked, or there's been a bit of a flush, enough of a flush lower to start dragging in some more bargain hunters. But yeah, either way, I think higher rates, it's going to work on earnings. It's going to really, future earnings. So for now, it's going to be tonight, and working forward for this current earnings in the US. It's going to be where people think they're placed for future earnings. Okay, and whether it's a bit of, if they fail to hit the mark on these earnings, they might get savaged. Okay, or if they really do overshoot the market of what they were saying they were expectations from previously, then, which the US does, like I said, they do that a lot. They give really low expectations, so when they come to earnings, they can beat those expectations, and the market, you can at least keep that consistency on the upside. So we'll wait and see how that goes. I think, for the next, going forward for the next month or so, earnings, any sort of inflationary surprises to the upside could weigh on the market. But I think longer term, there's a lot of people expecting this market to roll over. Okay, but shorter term, we just trade what we see. All right, thanks for joining me, guys, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow. Cheers. Bye.